Hello, Robin Crowfoot coming from Rostow, Germany. Let's take a look and see what is important in the world news today. We've got wars, we've got refugees in Europe, we've got refugees in the USA, we've got minority parades and minority riots, and of course, fake news. But at the top of the list is climate change. Let's take a look at some of the effects of climate change.
Wildfires devastating the West Coast and other parts of the country, from California to New Mexico and Alaska and Minnesota.
Our top story tonight, the firefight in the Sierra. Evacuation orders for South Lake Tahoe have been downgraded to evacuation warnings. Now here's a map showing all the evacuation orders and warnings in place because of the Caldor fire.
Residents in the suburbs of Athens are evacuating as wildfires close in on the Greek capital.
Europe and the Mediterranean, meanwhile, continue to remain the world's wildfire hotspots. Nearly 10 countries have been affected. More than 100 have been killed and thousands have been left homeless.
Now, firefighters are battling more than 100 wildfires burning across Russia's Siberia. The fires are more intense this year due to high temperatures and a prolonged drought. It is feared the fires could significantly damage the region's ecosystem.
Overnight, the sprawl of more than 500 California wildfires surged in a relentless march of flames.
Military aircraft have been mobilised to help evacuate towns and fight more than 130 wildfires tearing across Western Canada.
At least 4 people have been killed and dozens more injured in wildfires in southern Turkey.
Let's take a look at some flooding and blizzards and tornadoes and hurricanes and drought that are happening this year.
They watch as if in fear things could get worse in Germany. And the rising waters where the Rhine and Mosel rivers meet in Koblenz offer no reassurance. Dozens have lost their lives to flooding in this region, and there's little confidence the struggle for residents is over yet.
It's a natural disaster on a shocking scale, with heavy rain causing rivers to burst their banks, whole streets ripped away by the floodwaters, houses collapsed, livelihoods destroyed. More than 160 people have lost their lives.
Drought. A drought has scorched the American Southwest. And in sunny California, where more food is grown than anywhere else in the country, the need for water has become a crisis.
As you can see, can't really get over this.
Listen to that. And if that day arrives, it's often not what they imagined it would be. Dramatic images of well-lit cylinders, cones, and ropes rise above the white noise of more typical rain-wrapped, weak contrast, ill-defined tornadoes.
Some things are man-made, other things are an act of nature. Climate changes caused by man are just a few, and we'll take a look at a few of them. The burning of the Amazon rainforest makes the news quite often. Hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of acres have been burned off or logged off, reducing the air that trees produce that we breathe. Then, of course, there's coal-fired power plants pumping their smoke up into the air every day. There's the shipping industry that gets blamed for a lot of smog and smoke. This is a picture of the mole I took in 2018. It was at that time the biggest container ship in the world. Now it's a dwarf. And we've got air traffic, which is also a cause. We've all seen the smoke trails. The future is electric airplanes, which are, by the way, now in production. With today's current battery technology, what could possibly go wrong? Vehicle traffic is a biggie, with traffic jams and smog in cities, and there's no way you can deny that. And then, of course, we come to agricultural equipment, which gets blamed a lot for belching smoke in the air. Some of the newer models, of course, don't do that. But a lot of the eco-freaks would rather have us go back to this, steam-powered. Here's a look at some agricultural equipment which is now in production. Hey, that's pretty good. Works off wireless. You can sit at home in your office at your desktop and plow your fields. Industrial accidents cause a tremendous amount of smog and pollution.
This blast also caused a fire in a nearby fuel depot.
This morning, a massive chemical fire in Rockton, Illinois is still burning with no end in sight.
Let's look at some of the climate changes caused by natural causes. Forest fires caused by lightning create many fires, but I doubt if it's as many fires as fires that are man-made in the forest. But the greatest polluter of all times are volcanoes. At the present time, there are 52 volcanoes active around the world that are being followed around the world. This volcano in Sicily started on March the 7th of this year and is still pumping tons and tons and tons of crud into the air every single day. Many people think that a volcano just erupts and is over with in a day or so, but these things keep blasting this junk into the air for months and months and months. Some of it has even reached from Italy into my fish pond in Rosso, Germany. Volcano recently erupted in the Canary Islands. It has been going on now, belching this garbage in the air for at least 2 weeks. As I make this film, there's a great sulfur cloud that has come all the way up and is covering Germany at this time, which will eventually cause a lot of acid rain. That's about 2,000 miles away. But we don't want to talk about volcanoes. We want to talk about the exhaust coming out of my four-cylinder Suzuki. Let's just take a close look at what the scientists say today. Which science is correct? The science the politicians push or independent scientists? Well, we can all remember Al Gore back in the early 80s pushing climate change and global warming, and then we had several years of the coldest recorded in history.
Creating the internet.
According to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, CO2 emissions from fossil fuels, which constitute 85% of our energy use, must be reduced to zero by 2100.
Well, one of my missions is to turn on its head the idea that carbon dioxide is a pollutant and somehow dangerous, when in fact it is the most important nutrient for all life on Earth, and without it this would be a dead planet.
Well, which science do you believe?
On September 18th, satellites observed that Arctic sea ice had reached its annual low.
This year's sea ice minimum is effectively tied for the second lowest on record.
One scientist says that Arctic ice has reached a minimum extent in 2021, and another scientist says Arctic Sea has reached the maximum extent. Which one is right?
By Discovery News writer Patrick J. Kiger, global warming and climate change are actually increasing sea ice.
According to a new report, experts say that we have until 2030 to avoid catastrophe. It also says if unprecedented changes are not made and made soon, there will be irreversible damage to the planet.
While science blames all the climate change on the ozone layer, I found it really interesting 3 or 4 days ago to find this article that the ozone layer recovery is an environmental success story. Now, once again, I ask you, who do you want to believe? Politicians are pushing worldwide with some of these programs to reduce global warming and climate change. But there are consequences. Nature lovers are not aware that over 100,000 birds in Germany alone are killed by these wind turbines. Some people say, yeah, cats in your house catch birds too, but not eagles, and cats are not man-made. Let's take a look at that again in slow motion.
States, a helicopter running on fossil fuels, spraying a chemical made from fossil fuels onto a wind turbine made with fossil fuels during an ice storm is awesome.
Room in Germany on the ground for wind turbines is getting scarce, so they've moved their product to the North Sea and the Baltic Sea. I can just imagine what the noise from these things does to the fish and other water creatures that live below the sea. Solar panels seem to be a good idea. I know that they work quite well for one camping trailer, but I don't believe that they'll work very well at all for a large industrial company like steel and auto plants. They cover the ground, making it impossible for predatory birds of the air to come down and catch the mice and rats that live below.
With solar panels on the roof. To be safe, firefighters should be equipped with F5.
Shoveling snow on the sidewalk is bad enough. I certainly don't want to crawl up on the roof and shovel the snow off my solar panels.
But it's actually 170,000 sets of mirrors the size of garage doors called heliostat. Up to 900 degrees is charring the feathers of birds flying through, often causing them to crash and die. Workers on site call them streamers because of the smoke plume created when the birds ignite in midair.
A battery storage area for solar and wind turbines in Brandenburg, about 100 kilometers away from us, caught fire and looked something like this. What are they changing in Germany? Well, they're blowing up and destroying coal power plants and blowing up nuclear power plants because of the fear of a tidal wave coming from a tsunami like in Japan. Although these reactors are maybe 700 miles away from the ocean. The Nord Stream 2 pipeline is bringing gas from Russia to Germany. Another major change in Germany is what's going to happen to the transportation. Are we going to see any problems at all there?
Many companies are now focusing on electrification of their mass transit solutions. 12-meter length BYD K9, simply referred to as the BYD eBus or BYD electric bus, is a low-floor, single-deck city bus manufactured
On October 1st, 2021, in Stuttgart, Germany, a series of fires started from an electric bus that caught fire in a parking lot and wiped out 20 other buses. For the city to continue operating, they had to bring their diesel buses back into force.
The perfect electric motorbike for you. We have listed the top 10 best electric motorcycle of 2020 that you must carry for battery and motor onboard.
The original clip here is over 40 minutes long. I have taken and cut many portions out, but want it to run as long as it does so that you get a feeling of just how long it takes to put out these fires.
Bravo! Plasty, vole. Furt hodný, vole. Tak to se nepovedlo. Ty krávo. Ty tam hodí ty plasty na tomhle, Pavle. Já vím. To je v prdeli. On už tam na to vychrstli 3 kýble. Nezahasíš, jo, 3. Cože ne? Ty vole. Chemikály jako krafté. Honzo! Tady tam, to kurcoval, tak! Daj tam motorka. Elektromotorka, pamatuju. Dobré, vole. Běžte dál, běžte dál! Běžte dál! Tady se dostane. Tady. Stačí popelnice.
It's official. Electric bikes are here to stay, and their popularity is through the roof. Liberated from some of the normal constraints of standard bike design like weight and gearing, e-bike design has exploded.
Oh, snap.
Oh man, up in smoke.
There are also brands creating futuristic electric boat and electric yacht innovations for the open seas. And because this falls well in line with our mission to bring our viewers all things future
Jupiter. It was caused by a prototype electric boat being developed by TwinV. Now I will say, I definitely think electric boats have their place in the market and is something we are gonna see a lot more of, especially for
The popularity of electric cars is growing, and so too is the choice of what you can buy. Even just a few years ago, electric cars were pretty rare and very expensive, but now there's a huge choice across many budgets and classes. But what's the best you can buy right now?
Now on Night Beat, some scary moments. So far, Tesla not commenting on this video. Scary moments for the car's owner.
Some Tesla vehicles catching fire. Saying it caught fire out of the blue.
Brennen, wie dieser Tesla. Er fackelt im Mai in der Schweiz durch einen Unfall komplett ab. Der Fahrer aus Tettnang stirbt dabei.
Well, let's take a look at how much the climate has really changed throughout the years. There have always been dry years and droughts throughout history,
fires have been popping up, completely devastated.
as well as major fires taking out entire cities.
The fire took on that town in particular.
But the skies suddenly turned black.
Hurricanes are not new either.
The good people of Galveston had virtually no defense against the great storm sweeping in from the sea. A Category 4 hurricane lashed the island community.
Nor is flooding along rivers.
A steady, protracted rainfall will swell rivers to overflowing. Or a beautiful winter wonderland like this can suddenly become a terrifying threat to life and property.
And even the ocean around New York.
Three million Americans were uprooted from their homes and
back in the 1930s, we experienced a great dust bowl across Middle America. It's never been that bad again, so climate is definitely getting worse. Governments are making huge changes in our lifestyle blamed on so-called climate change. This film is not to show the pros and cons of climate change, but rather to show you that the technology that we have today is far from being safe. Do we do away with fossil fuels? Well, then we'll have to do away with cell phones, computers, LCD TV screens, and about anything else that's made from oil, because that is a fossil fuel that they want to reduce and eliminate. When the power is knocked out, regardless of whatever reason, whether natural causes or someone runs into an electric pole, it is a diesel generator that keeps the hospitals operating, as well as the police department and other forms of communication. Diesel power, fossil fuel that will be eliminated. I'm sitting right here in Rosso, where they say a huge glacier once existed. In fact, it created the Baltic Sea, which is only about 25 kilometers away as the bird flies. Okay, if this was a glacier, what happened to it? Where did it go? Maybe these were the causes. We can't go back to horses because they'll all have been killed, because they're going to kill off all the animals that have farts. So, what are we going to do? The scientists want to stop global warming at 1.5 degrees. Well, good luck. I don't believe they can change the world's climate. If they could, maybe they could at least make rain where forest fires and drought areas occur. But since they cannot make rain, I doubt seriously if they can change the climate of the whole world. Climate change is a normal process. It started with the beginning of the Ice Age and continues on today. Some people scream, the sky is falling, the sky is falling, we're all going to die. That's not true. I believe it's better to put our money and our resources into cleaning up the ocean. They're filled with plastic bags and all other kinds of plastic and nylon ropes and nylon nets. Or do you enjoy eating microplastics in your seafood?
What does it mean that we found microplastics in our protoscampi?
Is this going to be our future? Well, I ask you now that you've watched this film, which science do you believe? The science that politicians are pushing, or the science of reality? It's your choice.